Greetings, my name is Chamomile and this is an exploration of the entire galaxy sector by sector. Today, we're looking at Meridian Sector and 12th Cerulean Spear Command. Meridian Sector is the domain of the Grismath dynasty, ruled according to their traditions. Records don't say explicitly, but from their position well behind the Jospro sector that formed the border between early Republic territories in the core and the Outer Rim territory of the Tion hegemony, the Grismath dynasty were most likely a Tianese noble house. The Tianese War went poorly for the hegemony, but not so bad that they weren't able to negotiate a lot of compromises for their subsequent accession to the Republic as a sector. Grismath dynasty was accepted to the Republic separately from other Tianese nobles as the Meridian Sector, and while I'm still forced to guess because their history is just blank for thousands of years, it looks like the Grismath dynasty probably broke off from the Tion hegemony after the death of their founding conqueror Zim the Despot, didn't get merged back into the hegemony by the honorable union of Tion and Decevro, the way that the Tion cluster and its immediate periphery mostly did, but remained allied to the Tion hegemony, which is why the Tianese border with the Republic was in Jospro sector in the Mid-Rim, and not the Meridian sector in the Outer Rim. Meridian Sector must have had a ton of privileges grandfathered in as one of the very first sectors incorporated into the Republic, though, because in the middle of the High Republic era, they were exiling prisoners to penal colonies on the desert world of Nam Chorios, and when the prisoners grew unruly, they virus-bombed the planet with a plague called the Death Seed. Meridian is an Outer Rim sector, but it's smack on the Prolembian trade route. It's weird that the Grismath dynasty got away with an atrocity that extreme in the High Republic era. Being an early sector that got away with murder, in some cases literally, would also explain why there's so many sentient species native to this sector, none of whom have Senate representation. The Nymerian spaceport in Anem, a capital city of the planet Nymar, is allegedly the most advanced spaceport in all the Meridian sector, but they aren't in charge, Grismath is. The Pair Duag are these haunting creatures, symbiotes who are born separately but fuse together as they grow up together, but they aren't in charge, Grismath is. Planet Karamon, homeworld of the Karites, a porcine humanoid species known for their grins, have a mercantile culture and were members of the Trade Federation, but they're not in charge, Grismath is. Helix 9 supposedly has a native population of methane breathers, although I can find no other information, which is unsurprising since they aren't in charge, Grismath is. The Drovians are technically humanoids and native to the planet of Nim Drovis, and that Nim prefix makes it really clear this is a Grismath name for the planet. I'm guessing the Drovians just call it Drovis, or maybe they have a completely different name for themselves. Their traditionalist tribe is called the Gopsoo, which sounds very different from Drovian, and also the dominant Drovian culture who are more integrated into galactic society don't like the Gopsoo, so I guess the Drovian mainstream likes that they aren't in charge, Grismath is? And then the Grismath dynasty died in a nuclear war at some point between the virus bombing of their prison planet and the establishment of the New Republic. They did leave a couple of colony planets behind to pick up their mantle, like Ampliquen. Imperial Moffs had overridden the sovereignty of sector governments at will for decades under the Empire, so regardless of exactly when the Grismath dynasty offed themselves, the actual ruler of Meridian Sector was Moff Xerex. He decided he was going to join the New Republic. He'd focused most of his efforts as Moff on cracking down on Hutt crime networks and the piracy problem plaguing the Budpock system, and while he'd gone about this with the usual Imperial disregard for sentient rights, the fundamentally reasonable goal of fighting crime meant that Mon Mothma was happy to negotiate with him. He was the kind of wrong thing for the right reasons Imperial that Mon Mothma loved. This was a huge problem for 12th Cerulean Spear, which had reorganized itself into the Imperial remnant nation of Greater Maldrude, because Meridian Sector is in the Outer Rim, past Maldrude Sector and Jospro Sector, and a bunch of other territory that Greater Maldrude didn't want joining the New Republic, and now Xerex was putting up a New Republic enclave on the Prolembian trade route that threatened to cut the whole oversector in half. The neighboring anti-Meridian sector had engaged in a bit of light genocide during the Imperial era, so their Moff Gateles was all in on the Imperial remnant. Gateles recovered Death Seed from the surface of the Nam Chorios and unleashed the disease on the sector, paid off a bunch of the surviving Budpock pirates to launch some raids, and invaded the sector with his own fleet as a peacekeeping measure, with the goal of conquering the anti-Meridian sector before it could join the New Republic and presenting the conquest to Mon Mothma as a fait accompli and an internal matter. Mon Mothma might have accepted that, but Admiral Akbar certainly wasn't going to. See, Calamari space is in 12th Cerulean Sphere, and although it wasn't one of the sectors officially claimed by Greater Maldrude, they hadn't formally recognized its independence either. It was one of several sectors that they didn't govern, but which were nevertheless within their de jure borders, and which they were implicitly giving themselves permission to invade at a later date. Being located deep in the Outer Rim is what allowed Calamari space to declare open rebellion against the Empire successfully relatively early in the Galactic Civil War, and now it would prevent the New Republic from coming to Mon Cala's aid if Greater Maldrude was able to crack the Mon Calamari fleet defenses. Admiral Akbar was deeply invested in making sure Greater Maldrude didn't become a major regional power, and that the Prolemian trade route remained open to New Republic ships heading out to the very edge of the galaxy to Calamari space. So he rammed the entire rebel fleet down Moff Gateli's throat. Greater Maldrude threw Gateli's under the bus, and both Meridian and Anti-Meridian sectors joined the New Republic. Princess Leia was allegedly kidnapped and held on the ice planet of Damonite Yours B in this sector, but this sounds like the kind of detail a historical dramatization might have fabricated to punch things up. The historical fiction writers are one of our best sources after Palpatine disbanded the Imperial bureaucracy, but if you believe everything they write, Leia Organa got kidnapped on a weekly basis for 20 years straight, something you'd think would have had a bigger impact on her political career. Also, the Lorenar Corporation was in cahoots with Moff Gatela's the whole time. They didn't really do much besides provide credits, but providing credits to pay for a plan to intentionally cause a sector-wide pandemic that could have gone galactic is a fucked up thing to do, and I want Lorenar's culpability on record. But my favorite story isn't about Deathseed or the Lorenar Corporation. Meridian Sector lies on the Prolemian trade route, which means it was sort of in the Clone Wars. It was CIS territory at the outbreak of the war, and was not by the end, but the CIS mostly retreated straight past the Meridian Sector without stopping to fight. CIS garrison forces on the agri-world of Antimont got cut off from the retreat and tried to resist the clone army. A destroyed battle droid was found on the planet sitting under a tree, decades after the Clone Wars. Its weapon discarded, showing no signs of struggle, and an examination of the remains of the droid's circuits revealed that a mutation in the dynamic programming had allowed it to disregard its orders to participate in the battle. This kind of thing happens when a droid goes too long without having its memory wiped, and this particular droid uses its newfound freedom to escape the battle and find a hill to sit on, observing the world until its power ran out. Out of batteries, the droid was functional but unconscious, but also left exposed to the elements. Its circuitry degraded from accumulated moisture damage and lack of oil to the point of being irreparable. In effect, after watching a sunset, the droid slipped into unconsciousness and slept for months before finally dying.